It's crucial. It's like imperative. It's like I want to make sure that I have connections with women in all like phases. And so it was interesting about a month ago, a friend of mine, and I think this friend is probably like in her 60s. She introduced me to a woman who's probably in her 70s. And this woman in her 70s, she's an artist. And so we went over and did like a painting and art. And it's just refreshing to just be in different spaces, different generations, witness people at different points and stages in their lives, particularly women at different stages and points in their lives. And I don't think we do enough of that. Yeah, I don't think we do enough of that.
Welcome back to the 40 Portal podcast. I am your host, Catherine Zack. It's good to be here with you. So, okay, this comes up a lot on the podcast, this theme of when things fall apart, which also happens to be the theme and title of one of my most beloved books by Pema Chodron. I first read it in 2010 and have been rereading it for almost 20 years now, again and again and again. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, my kind of working theory that our 20s and our 30s are a tremendous time of putting things together, right? We're trying to figure out a lot about our life, our professional lives and our careers, our partnership, if that's something we're pursuing, our family life, where we want to live in the world, the community that we want to build, all of these things like coming together, putting it together. And my working theory about the 40s so far is that it's a time when a lot of things fall apart, right? The things that we have carefully constructed, whether it's the stories we tell about ourselves, the way we present ourselves to the world, how we understand our own identity to be, all of these things just seem to start to like the thread starts to unravel. But today, with my guest, Nancy Harris, she cooked up a different theory. It's not just that things fall apart. It's that sometimes we choose to tear them apart. And that got me. It's not just that this kind of dissolution of the carefully crafted image that we've put together in our 20s and our 30s starts to unravel. It's that we can be active participants and agents in our own unbecoming. This episode is packed with wisdom. Nancy is, as she says, 50 something. And so I love to always bring in voices that are a little bit further down the path from where I am. She has so much insight to offer. There's so much freedom in her perspective and what she shares and how she shares it. This one hit me. I think it's going to hit you too. Okay, let's go. So you and I met in an online group, and I've a few of my podcast guests have also, that's the way I met them. But you and I have a really special version of that. Ours is special because we were put on something like within this larger cohort of people, they had something called A-teams.
Yeah.
And we were put on the same A-team. And it was I think there's 5 of us, 5 fabulous women. And if I look back at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like, there's a little seed of the 40 portal planted there. Women across different generations or different decades of their life, different moments in their career. And yet there was some through line among all of us that allowed the organizers of this larger group to say like, oh, these 5 women need to sit together. What do you think that through line was?
I mean, if I had to guess, just having, spent time with the fantastic women that were in that group, is I think we were all at similar places in our entrepreneurial careers. We weren't at the very beginning. We weren't like at the very end. We were like somewhere in between where it's like, it's that kind of sweet spot where it's like that juncture of like, where do I go next? Like, how do I evolve this business? And so I think that may have been a through line right? Because there wasn't anybody that was there that was just like, I'm just starting my business. I'm like, have this rosy expectations of what entrepreneurship is after like 6 months. And it wasn't somebody who was like at the end. So I think that may have been something to do with it. Like we were in that kind of same juncture in terms of our like entrepreneurial lives.
The way you describe that too, it almost sounds like we could be talking about midlife, like 40s into 50s, right? Like
Yeah. Oh,
not
yeah.
not not just getting started and not done, but right in the middle of the thing. And yeah, wow, that really lands for me. I think that's such a beautiful place to be. It's also a place where like we're not great at telling stories from that place always, because it's really nice to tell a story after it's finished.
Right.
Or before it begins and imagine it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we don't know I mean, nobody does. I don't care where you are in life, right? You don't know what the end's going to be, right? We think we can predict all of these things that are going to happen in our lives, but in reality, we can't, right? Um, so yeah, it is. It's like you're in the soup. Like I think of like a stew and like all this stuff is like happening around you. And it's like, I think because we are in the stew at this phase, it's hard to like see through the like chicken or the tofu or the noodles or the vegetables, right? Like all of like because you're in it. And so it's just I think it's hard to tell the story from that place where it's again, if you're at the beginning and you're just starting to cook, like, oh, I can tell I want to make this kind of stew or that kind of stew or whatever. And I think where we are, it's like, I can't see
Mm-hmm.
what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And that meeting, that initial meeting was, I believe, 5 years ago or 4 years ago.
It probably, well, I want to say it was probably like 5 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because I think it was somewhere right around pandemic time. So yeah.
We were still in it. And then right before you and I pressed record today, we were just kind of reflecting on here we are again, everything kind of changing in a monumental way, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, but still in the middle and a different middle, which I think is really interesting too, is like, and sometimes we find solid ground. Of course we do, right? But then it's just like, it just keeps going. And that's another premise that I'm really trying to explore in these conversations I'm having, but also not just theoretical in my own life. Like,
Right, exactly.
that's good. That's good.
Yes.
And you also really emerged as such a leader of our A team and such you were like the connective tissue of that group and helping us stay organized and in touch even after it ended. And I appreciated that so much because that was clearly not my strong suit. And I just thank you for that. Thank you
Oh, you're
for,
welcome. Yeah.
yeah, thank
Yeah,
you for
I was
sharing
just
with me
thinking
today.
the other day, I'm like, I'm going to send out a note to the group and just say, whoever wants to meet, let's throw on some dates and we'll just open up a space, our virtual space, and just have conversation.
I would love that. And so you and I have sat across from each other in these little boxes for many, many hours over those 5 years. And we've had a ton of like one-on-one catch-ups too, which I value so much, but I have never met you in person.
I know. I think of the group, well, of the group, if I think of our little group, I have now I've actually met, well, actually, I was going to say three, but I've only actually met two people in person from the group. The other person I now work with. And so I was like, oh, I've met. And I was like, actually, I've never met that. I've never met her in person either, only via Teams and Zoom.
So I will say ours is a success story of like internet blind dating. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Okay, so now that everyone knows that about us, will you introduce yourself to our listeners by telling us what is your name, what are your pronouns, and then go deeper. Is there a story behind your name, or how do you connect to your name as part of your identity or not?
So my name is Nancy Harris, and I'm live in, have spent most of my life in Chicago, have lived some other places, but Chicago is where I call home. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I don't know that there's like some kind of deep story. I mean, I remember asking my mom, like, how did you come up with my name? And she was like, well, at first I was going to name you Shelley. I don't know why. I mean, so she never had any like real reason as to like why like my name is Nancy. My mom and I both share the same middle name. Like her middle name's Annette. My middle name is Annette. So sometimes people will see me. I will use like my first initial and then Annette. Maybe when I want to be a little bit more incognito, and people are like, "Who's Annette?" It's actually me, just my middle name. And so if I had to tell you a little bit about myself, I guess I would first and foremost say I am a daughter, a sister, a very, very proud auntie, and I'm a woman, a Black woman who um, is really at this point in time just trying to. I was going to say figure out, but I don't know if I'm going to try and figure out anything. Just trying to explore like who I am, what ignites my spirit, how I can serve myself, serve other people, and make a difference in this world. So that's what I would say. Like I forget the roles and the titles and I'm an entrepreneur with blah blah blah. Okay, great. Whatever. Um that's at the root of like what I'm feeling right now.
I I'm obsessed with your answer because my next question is literally how would you introduce yourself if job titles, accomplishments, and labels were not part of your answer? So you just did that. And I also feel like, Nancy, this is a place that you and I have spent a lot of time having conversations. And, knowing what I do know about the work that you do in the world and the way you described yourself, I'm like, wow, Nancy, that is your vocation. Like that is your calling. That is who you are, and how beautiful that like that's how you've been able to create in all the ways it's looked over the years, like the your job for yourself through that. How did you do that? How did you create work that is you? I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because if you go back, I mean, if you say like, if you want to say a title, I could say like, oh, I'm currently a, consultant, a management consultant and a business owner. And I have, I focus on leadership and development and I'm an executive coach, like all those things. Right. So whatever. And I'm not dismissing that as if it's like not important, but it's a role that I play. Right. Um, and I think to answer your question, I think a lot of it has to do with my dad. And I'm going to pull this out because I keep this with me, right? I keep this in front of me. So my dad passed away. I think you were, believe it or not, it's been 5 years. And so my dad was this thing that I just held up. It says that he was the founder he worked at an organization called Commonwealth Edison. I think it's now been bought out, but he was the founder of their African American network. Now in many organizations, they call them employee resource groups or all that. But he was the founder of that. So my dad was quiet in nature, but he was always involved in, or my recollection, right? He founded this. He was part of something in our town called Healing Racism. So he was like one of those like people that was doing things in the background around social justice. But he wasn't somebody that you were going to find like on the front lines on television and like marching in the streets. And so I think those seeds were planted. My brother is the same way. My nephew is very much the same way as well too. So I think that's where some of those roots started to form, and why it's important for me to just not look at the world as like a status quo and think, oh, this is just the way things are. And to think of like, okay, well, how can we make them better in some way?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about this too from your answer. And I think it might tie into what you just said. You said something like, I'm trying to figure out, no, I don't want to figure out. I'm exploring. Right. And what is like, can we figure out what you're talking, or is this something we're always exploring?
I mean, this is my thought. I was like, I think we're exploring. I mean, I think there's very few things in life that we actually like figure out, right? And I was listening to this. I'm a big YouTube person, so I was listening to this woman on YouTube. I cannot remember her name, unfortunately. She's a doctor, not of medicine, but of education, and she was just talking about like the different roles that we play and this framework for life. When one of the things she said was about curiosity. And so I think, I look at that hand in a hand. It's like we're exploring and, where can I be curious in all areas of my life? And in some areas, we're allowed to be a lot more curious. Like our organizations will say, oh, be curious, but like, really, how curious do they want you to be? Be curious within the confines of what we want you to do, but that's not really curiosity. So that's why I think I reflected on that word and said explore, because I mean, please tell me the person or the persons who have it all figured out, right? They're lying.
But like, because I'm so curious about this myth of figuring it all out, were there earlier moments in your life where you thought that part of your job in this life was to like figure it out? And when did you have a different understanding of that?
It's so funny that you say that. I recall like in my 30s, I started exploring, and I'm using that word intentionally. I started exploring like healthier alternatives to living and food as medicine and like all this stuff, right? And then it's kind of led me down this path of exploring. I started exploring like Dr. Wayne Dyer and like all these other I don't know what would we call them now. like spiritual guy, I don't know, whatever. And so I was reading all these books, very much was into my church, like just reading everything. And it was like, oh, I felt like once I read these books, like I have it. Is it Eckhart Tolle? I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Yes, but
That's
you know what
how
I'm
I
talking
would
about.
say it too. That's how I would say
And
it too.
so
Yeah.
like I was like just consuming all these like Ian Levanzan, like all these folks, right? And I think at that time I thought like once I read these books, I have it figured out. And then, life would happen. You get laid off, something, just whatever. And it was like, I don't know at what age it was or like what exactly happened, but there was something that I was like, oh, like I used to think if I read those books, I'd have everything figured out. But it was like, no, you don't. Like it's a journey, and you continue to explore and evolve and be curious and be intentional. But you don't have it figured out.
No.
And when you think you do, it's like it's when something changes.
That's right. A working theory that I have now for the 40 portal, as I'm about almost 20 episodes in now, talking to 20 different wonderful women and looking at my own life, which is what I do for a living, right? Like that's like so much of who I am. It's like how I've made my work in the world. But I think that a dominant energy of the decade of the 30s, our 30s, is like figuring it out. It's like putting it together. I'm currently rereading Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
And like the 30s are like, put it together, keep it together across all these different fronts. And I feel like the 40s are so far a decade of like a lot of things actually coming apart. And so many of them for me so far, and the women I've talked to are like those narratives that like told us we had to keep it together, put it together, do whatever it took to like not have it fall apart. And now I'm finding so much freedom in letting those like constrictions and restrictions fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like intentionally tearing them apart.
That is the unwritten book. That's like Pema part 2.
Right.
It's not just things fall apart.
It's like when you choose to say like, this constraint doesn't work, this system doesn't work, this whatever doesn't work, or is something that was so powerful. I've had a coach for many years, off and on. And I recall in one of our sessions, she said, I know where we were talking about. She said, and you know, this is all made up. And so, and at first I was like, oh, what is she talking about? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, she's right. I mean, there are some things that aren't made up. Like we all died. Like, okay, that's absolutely true. You know, there's a truth. That is true.
That is such a truth. And rereading Pema, it's like that's part of the reason why we don't want things to fall apart, right? Because we're like really trying to safeguard over the fact that we're going to die. And I can say that sentence. I often say that sentence like maybe a couple times a week, and we're all going to die. Like I actually need that reminder. And maybe this is fucked up, but like I say that to my kid, like my kids will say that back to me. Like they haven't lost like a grandparent yet, like anybody really close to them. So they've lost pets and whatever. But there's something about that I just always want them to, I don't want to hide it from them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. And because I think we can even do that as adults. We can hide it.
We most certainly do. All the time.
Okay. So I want to stick with the tearing things apart, but also, and this like the difference between the decades, but will you tell us how old you are and how old do you feel?
Can I just say I'm 50 something?
Yes.
Yes. How do I feel? I feel it depends on the day. I would say for the most part, though, this is going to sound so bizarre. I was like, I almost kind of feel like ageless. Like yes, there are days when it's like my back hurts or it's like I have frozen shoulder. You know, I mean, this is clearly a sign of menopause, perimenopause. Right. So there are those things that come into mind, but I mean, I certainly feel like I'm a good, like 10 years younger than what I am, like on a, like physical, physiological. And I also, the reason why I sometimes I was like, oh, I don't say my age is because, not because that there's, I feel a judgment to it. I feel like we then judge other people then judge. Oh, Catherine, I don't know. You're 40. Oh gosh, you don't look a day over 35. Yeah. It's just, I think there's all this stigma that society, and maybe I shouldn't care, but I think some of it is just like people, yeah.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm so obsessed with this.
Please challenge me.
No, I mean, I'm just so obsessed with this that I've started this gosh darn podcast. Like, what does it mean to be the age we are? What changes? And also, how do people relate to, how do we relate to each other in this framework? And how does society relate to us? So like, this is one of my questions, which is like, you know, when you were growing up, what was a script that you were given about a woman who is 50 something?
Well, what was so interesting is I don't even think I knew what my mom's age was till she was probably like 80 or something. Like she never said, like I don't even think I knew like with my aunt, like nobody ever really like talked about it. Like so and so at such and such age. I mean, I think as my mom, really started to get to be up in age, then she would say that she's like, I'm going to get the senior discount. But before that, like when my mom was like in her 50s, like I remember, and I didn't know because again, she didn't say how old she was at the time, but I remember going out with my nephew who was little at the time. Let's say he was a toddler or something like that. Let's say he was like 4 or 5 or something, maybe like 3 or 4 or something. And I was going out with my mom. We were at the mall, and somebody went up to her and they said, "Oh, is that your child?" Like she laughed. She's like, no, like, and here I was probably like 20 something, right? However old I was at the time, right? And I was probably even older than that. So I was like, oh, because you couldn't really tell how old she was physically, right? So I think I've kind of gone through, and I've never asked her like why she didn't say that, or but I think I've kind of just gone through life with like people, like energetically, like how do they feel, like how do they show up, like there's people that I've known that were younger, but they had like an older spirit about them, or they moved in a way that was that seemed very heavy. And then I've been around people who were, who I didn't know what their age was. And it's like, oh my God, their like energy and their spirit and the way they carry themselves and the way they move just is just like energetically so much like lighter. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that's just, I've grown my family, like my immediate family is small. My brother is older than I am. And in our like larger family, our cousins and stuff, we're still really close. Like I'm probably on the younger end of the older cousins now because those folks have kids and stuff like that. But so yeah, I don't know. I just yeah, I would just say family, and yeah, yeah.
I love it. No one has not answered the question so far. So I love that you're like 50 something. I won't tell you more. I mean, maybe this is like I want to talk to more women in their 50s. I am trying to talk to women in every decade. And that is really was the genesis of this project too, because there is no monolith of woman. There is no monolith
Exactly.
of any one age. And especially in like our interacting with the world so much through our phone and just being shown more of what we're already looking at, we don't always get to interact with women in other generations or decades of their lives. And I think that there's something so valuable about that.
It's crucial. It's like imperative. It's like I want to make sure that I have connections with women in all like phases. And so it was interesting about a month ago, a friend of mine, and I think this friend is probably like in her 60s. She introduced me to a woman who's probably in her 70s. And this woman in her 70s, she's an artist. And so we went over and did like a painting and art. And it's just refreshing to just be in different spaces, different generations, witness people at different points and stages in their lives, particularly women at different stages and points in their lives. And I don't think we do enough of that. Yeah, I don't think we do enough of that.
What did you pick up from those women in their 60s and 70s while you were painting with them? Was there like a quality or an energy or anything that you observed?
It's so funny. My friend who's in her 60s, like you would never like in 1,000 years, you like you never guess. I think what I picked up on a couple of things is one in particular for the woman who is in her 70s, who it's like connecting with something that you love and that you're passionate about. I think we started having this conversation or like what your purpose is. And I don't even know what this woman's like job was previously. We didn't even talk about it. But she said at some point in her life, her husband passed away And I mean, not too long ago, like her husband had passed away and she started taking up painting, right? And artwork and really getting into it. And she's like self-taught and now she's like kind of teaching other people. So I think what I've seen, and I've seen in her, I've seen it in my mom as well too. I mean, my mom's well into her 80s, and I think what I see is in her and other people is one thing I think that is so important is like connection and community, staying connected and in community with other people. And then what is it that you're like, you know, passionate about, a hobby, and those those change over our lifetimes, right? But she wasn't focused on like a job or like all these things we get, so focused on. It was about kind of like living her life and back to that word. I don't know why it's coming to me again and again around exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Being like she explored artwork, right? She didn't say, "Oh, I've got to go to the Art Institute and get a degree, and then that's the only way I'm going to be a legitimate." I was like, she just explored. She picked up some work. She studied some folks on YouTube, right? And she just, was finding something that brought her joy.
And that brings us back to your distinction of the difference between exploring something versus figuring it out. I think there's something there. I think this is part of the thesis too of the 40 portal is like a shift from needing to figure it out. I don't know. Okay, so then this is a question I usually don't even get to with my guests because it's number 9 in my list of 10 questions, but I'm going to hop to it. So what is it that you're learning to care less about as you get older?
Damn near everything. I think one of the biggest things is I'm caring less and less like what people think. I cannot tell you how driven a lot of my decisions have been by what people think. Again, I think I mentioned this coach that I've worked with, and she's worked with a coach, and they have this framework. It's like pleasing versus serving. So I think of like I cannot think about how much time I've spent trying to please, whether it's like a parent, God, love you parents, but a lot of times spent trying to please them. Then you're in school, it's like you're trying to please your teachers, and that's from that to college. If you went to college or not, and then I'm in the workplace. I'm trying to please the boss. I'm trying to. So I'm at this point right now, and it's funny that you asked that question because this literally just came up the other day when I had gotten some feedback about something. I mean, I'll just share. So I'd gotten some feedback at work, like, "Oh, you didn't come across when you were facilitating something, like you didn't have the gravitas and didn't seem like you were really comfortable." And I was, for first, I was really taken aback and kind of probably was a little defensive because I've been like doing this work for, I don't know, for years and years and years and years. And then I got off the call with the meeting with the person, and I thought to myself, I asked myself, like, what was the trigger? Like, what triggers you? And I said, I'm tired of trying to be what somebody else wants me to be. And so that was it. So that's the perfect timing for the question, because I was like, I'm not going to put on a show anymore. I'm done with putting on the show, or you need to show like executive presence and gravitas and, you didn't command the room and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? I don't really care at this point. If this is what you get, and if that doesn't work with what you're looking for, maybe I'm not the right person to facilitate that, right? That doesn't mean I can't facilitate it. That doesn't mean that I won't, but it's just, I've just like, I care less and less about what other people think of me, the feedback they have around how it is that you're showing up. And because it's also coming through their lens, their bias, their perceptions, their whatever. And that's not to say that we dismiss, feedback that we're given. I'm not saying that, but I also feel like at some point in our lives and our careers where we've done things and like it would be somebody, giving you feedback around your meditation or well, you know what, you could have done that. And it's like, but this, like, this is your, so yeah, I'm just at the point where it's just like, okay, thank you for your feedback. And next.
Oh, I think we should end the episode here, except for I want to talk to you more about this. Okay, so several things. Number one, I'm feeling defensive for you. I'm like, I can't imagine anyone saying that Nancy Harris does not have the gravitas like that. I don't want that. I like, no. And
Those were the words.
Right. But can I tell you, when you told me your middle name, which I'm assuming it starts with an A.
Yeah, it does.
So I was like, your initials are nah.
You're right. They are. They are.
But I didn't say it earlier, but now I'm going to say it to you. Because like that whole story is like, nah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Put my initials, NAH. Thank you.
We got to get you
that's my initials.
One of those tote bags that have your initials, and you can just turn your bag towards someone.
Exclamation point.
Okay. So how do you do that? Because, and I know it's a process of exploring and not figuring it out, but I know that there are women listening right now who, because I'm there too, Nancy, I am shocked. I recently have gone through an experience that has been a mirror at how much of my time I actually am still spending people pleasing, right? Like I didn't even realize I was doing that shit to the degree I still was. So I'm in a process of tearing it apart, which is such an interesting one because do you know what that means? That I have to learn. First of all, I have to get much thicker skin. I'm doing that. I have to also be okay with being unlikable, with people thinking that I am unlikable. And I also have to be okay with being misunderstood. And I have to resist the urge to over-explain myself. These are the ways that I'm working on this right now. So I want to hear from you. Like, how are you doing that? How are you learning to like literally be like, nah, not currently accepting that feedback. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to say, like, it is a practice that I'm not there, right? Because I just used that example and I told you I was triggered. So clearly I'm not, not there. And the example that I shared is like, I start to ask myself the question, like, what's behind that? So if I'm feeling like in the example, defensive, or, I leave a situation where I said yes to something when I really meant no, and that still happens, to just ask myself, what was behind that? It's like because I'm good at judging myself and I'm good at being hard on myself. And so it's back to like asking that question with just curiosity. Like I'm just investigating, like what was behind that feeling that I had. And so that question has been really powerful. Just kind of like, oh, I felt a certain way. What was that? You said yes to that. What was behind that? Oh, you know what? I didn't want to hurt that person's feelings, or sometimes it's just automatic. I say yes, especially in like if anybody's in a corporate environment. I'm actually coaching someone, and the person was basically like, I just say yes to everything. And that's how this person has achieved this like grand level, of success. And I put in, again, success is different for different people, or a certain role, I should say, or level within an organization. But then the person's burned out. But then the person, it's like, and then it's hard. Like you said, it's hard. It's you really just have to practice it. And I started with things that were just really small to say no to. It was interesting. Somebody at work, I was traveling for work, and I guess I'm at this point, I'm like, I was going to say, who cares? Whatever, who hears, whatever. So it was like, oh, you're traveling here, and then you're traveling here. And then, oh, would you mind traveling the next week? Like international? No. And years ago, I wouldn't have said that because there is also like in our organizations and our companies, there's the carrot, like, oh, if you don't say yes to everything, then you won't get that promotion, or you won't get to that next level, or you might get that feedback on your performance review, or you might get laid off in the next round of layoffs. So I'm just going to stretch myself and say yes to everything. And I was like, you know what? I think the statistics bear in mind. I was going to say particularly, I know for like, I'll say for Black women, right? You can say yes to everything, you still don't get the promotion. You can say yes to everything, and you still get the shitty feedback on your performance review. So at the end of the day, it's like I was talking to someone, we're like, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't, right? I've gotten feedback that I was too professional. I've gotten feedback that I didn't have gravitas. Oh, that you seem quiet. What the hell's wrong with somebody being quiet?
Right.
Quiet. So, yeah.
No, I mean, what you just said is important to reiterate as we're exploring this topic. You can try and check all the boxes of that thing, right? Saying yes, chasing the opportunity, trying to convince someone that you're whatever you think they want you to be. And there are no guarantees that it's going to work out in your favor.
None. And when you get there, how many people have you worked with? Have I coached? Have I seen in my own life where you get to this place where it's supposed to be like leadership, role nirvana, and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah. I want to just tell more truthful stories about that, right? Because the myth is so shiny and we love chasing shiny things still.
I mean, and we love it, and our society says we should be chasing the shiny things, right? I mean, you should be chasing, I'm putting in quotes, like you should be chasing that role or that next level or that next promotion. And then I'm always like, at what cost is that? Like there's always a cost, and there's always a trade-off, right? And I used to work with someone who did numerology, and he would say, you can have your cake and eat it too. And I was like, oh yeah. And then that was probably my 30s. So I was like, oh yeah, I can have my cake and eat it too. And I was like, yeah, you can, but maybe you can't have it all of this. Maybe you can't eat the cake and all at the same time, like the cake and that, like you might have the icing, one year, and you might have the cake another year. And sometimes you might have the cake and the icing all together, right? But yeah, but there may be years where there's no cake or no icing.
No cake. Or you eat all the fucking cake and then you're sick.
Right, exactly. And you're like, I ate it. I thought this was what I wanted, but like your kids, like a kid's like, I want all this. And like, Mommy, I don't feel good. Yeah, that's what happens when we eat all a whole box full of chocolates.
That's right. Okay, so you talked about the cost, the trade-offs. Like, what are some things that you are not willing at this age to trade off?
My soul. and I'm pausing because, I have had my own business, and I mean, I still do, although it's changed in terms of the amount of time that I spend on it right now. I think sometimes I felt like I've had to like lose my soul, like when we take like some of our corporate jobs, right? Because you do give up a level of, flexibility, freedom, and sometimes some of your values, right? So I think where I'm at right now, when I said like not lose my soul, is like really don't want to lose my values and what's important to me, be that around like social justice, be that around like the importance to me of like family, values of, integrity and authenticity. Be authentic to who you are, and that evolves and that changes, and that's okay. Um, but I'm not willing to compromise that piece. I'm not willing to show up as somebody else anymore because, first of all, it's just damn exhausting.
I was just
Um,
gonna say that. I'm too tired.
it's just, yeah. And I think you get to a certain point, it's this is tired. It's like, it's a weight, it's tired, it's heavy. And I think you've seen this. I've seen this. Um, there's another person that went through Indie Collective, and I won't mention the person's name, but she does a lot of work with like branding, and I actually worked with her on some brand, your personal brand. And, she'll say it. There's so many women that will be like, has spent, 15, 20, 25 years in corporate. And you're asking like, what's your brand or who are you? And they just start espousing like their role, all of that stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, like they've lost like who they are, who the essence of who they are. And it was like, I don't want to lose the essence of who I am.
Okay, what is one thing that your 10 years ago self, so 40 something Nancy, what would she be really surprised to learn about you today?
She would be surprised that I actually did it. That after all the years from probably from my 20s all through my 30s, that I actually had at the time left corporate to pursue a business. So I think that would be surprising. I think the other thing that would be surprising is, that you still sometimes care what other people think. Like I thought by now you would completely 100% not care. And I want to talk to the person who 100% doesn't care. And maybe like 10, you talk to me 5 or 10 years from now and I'd say, I totally don't care. So I think that would be surprising. I also think I would be like 10 years prior. It's like some of the friendships and connections that I've made over the years, and that have made and maintained, um, have been, pretty instrumental and very, yeah, I would just say very instrumental and like very like heartfelt. So I would be like, there's some people that I knew 10 years ago that I thought I would be friends with, or still would be in my life, and they aren't. And there's people that I met 10 years ago that if you would have told me, gosh, we're still like in community and we're still like 10 years from now, I'd like, what? Are you kidding me? And then there's just like these phenomenal like people I met along the way. And I think the other thing that I would be like, if I go back like 10 years, I had co-founded this, it was called Disrupt HR Chicago, and it was a chapter that my friend Nicole and I had co-founded, and Kelly was another person that was involved in it as well too. And I think I would have been surprised because we built up a community and just the the work and the positivity and all that came out of it. Like I never saw myself as somebody who was like going to be an organizer of an event or, having these speakers and like, I would have never imagined that or like having a podcast. Like my worldview, like from like having been in corporate America most of my life was so confined to that to think like, oh, you could have a business and a podcast and run, a very successful like series of events, speaking, events over like a 4-year period, that I would be like working, and affiliated with like one of the major universities in the world, like, teaching there and being part of their executive education program. Like, what? And I don't think any of that would have happened had I stayed in. I mean, I can't predict, obviously. I think the likelihood that all of that would have happened, obviously, had I stayed in a corporate space the entire time would wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. What, how did you feel about turning 40?
Actually, I felt good.
Yeah.
I I'll say this too. I think sometimes it's like I don't know if you felt this way, right? Like you get to an age where it's like 40, right? And all the societal things that we have heard over the years. I think it's shifted and changed, but it's still there. But that you hear about turning 4, oh, it's midlife and blah, all those things, right? Or that's old or blah, blah. And there was a part of it that I kind of felt like liberating. And there was a part of it was like when you got to it, it's like, I don't feel any different. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I wonder what it's like, is what I have been thinking lately. Like, because my mom will say things about like getting older is harder, and she'll say all these things. I wonder what it's like, to look at yourself like when you are 70 or 80 and you don't look like yourself. I think that to me is because I think, you go from 30s to 40, you look the same, 40s to 50s, even 60s now. I mean, the way, people are aging and, you still I mean, our bodies, of course, shifts and change through all types of things, whether it be, pregnancy, menopause, like all of those things, right? But you still relatively can look at yourself in the mirror and you look the same. But I don't know if you've ever seen those, well, they'll take somebody's age and like, this is what you look like at 40. Here's what you look like at 80. And it's like, oh my gosh. So I always wonder like, gosh, what do you think? Like when you look at the mirror and it's like, your face isn't, I mean, unless you've done a whole bunch of plastic surgery.
Right.
I won't call out anyone at Martha Stewart. Right. And again, I understand like why. And again, it's not, there's no judgment on her. Cause we talk about society and those pressures, right? She's in the public eye. They're like, oh, Martha Stewart looks fantastic at like, I don't know how old she is, 75, 8, whatever.
She's in her
is,
80s.
right?
She's in her 80s.
Right. But if you look at her,
Yeah.
I mean, she looks like she's in her 50s.
50s.
And, but there's no judge because I understand, because if she did look like she was in her 80s, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, you're damned if you do, if you damned if you don't. So if she did look like that, they would be talking about how old she looked. The way in which she looks like she does now, they're like, oh, she's had all this work done. It's like, you know what? As long as she's happy, like if because I can't say that I won't do any work,
Right.
So it's no judgment, or I'm not like trying to put any like shade on anybody that does, any woman that does any of that, because it's like you understand the societal pressures. I hope though that if someone's doing it, or if I'm doing it, you're doing it from a place of like, oh, I want to, maybe you want to feel like the best that you can feel. And maybe that's something like, oh, like I want to get Invisalign. I used to have braces and I was like, I didn't wear the retainers. My teeth have shifted back. I was like, I do want to get Invisalign. Right. It's not because it's like, oh, I want to make sure that my teeth look perfect. It's like, just for me, it's something that I would feel better about, making sure that. So I think if it's coming from that place, like what's your intention versus society is telling me that I need to look this way. So I'm going to get the butt BBLs and the butt, and again, maybe if that's what's making you feel great, but I don't think most of us, especially if we're in our 30s and we're doing those types of things, which again, don't like, I'm like, where are we in our 30s getting like all this stuff done? But, cause what are you going to do when you're 50 or 40? Right. But again, I think that's by design for us to keep feeling like we're not good enough. And so again, I think if it's coming from a place, it's like asking yourself that question. It's like, what is driving me, or what, oh, okay, so I would like to get a visit. What's behind that? Right.
What's behind that? That's your question. That's your question.
And so if you can say like, oh, you know what, And I mean, really peel back the layers. Like, oh, I've never felt really good about my thighs. Well, why is that? Oh, because somebody told you didn't feel good about your thighs. Like, how do you feel? So it's a lot to unpack and uncover and like peeling back of the onion around it. But if you can peel it back and it's coming from a place of like true intention, like, yeah, I really would feel better if I felt stronger. So I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to, get a trainer or not get a trainer or go on Peloton or YouTube for free and like do some weight training because that's going to make me feel better so that I can live my full life for myself. I'm saying myself first, right? Because somebody say, I want to live my life for my kids. Well, what happens when your kids are grown, right? It's like, so live for yourself so that you can live the best life that you can live. And then that can encompass like spending time with your grandkids or spending time with your kids or whatever. So yeah, I don't even know what the question was. And I just rambled on about whatever I was talking about.
How did you feel about turning 40? That was the question.
So that was it.
This is why the podcast exists. Cause I'm like, it is kind of, whoa, there's a lot to unpack there. As we just did. Okay, so I'm going to shift into my 40 Portal book, but you know what? I was going to read you something to respond to, but I actually just want your off the cuff entry. So I'm going to read you the prompt and then you go, baby. Okay. If you have passed the threshold of 40 yourself, tell us what you know, trust, have learned and burned and earned and churned. It can be short and sweet, silly and irreverent, sexy or serious. I'm here for all of it.
I've earned the right to love myself just as I am. No BS trying to pretend to be somebody else. No trying to please or attract, trying to please my husband. I don't have a husband, but like trying to please my husband or trying to attract, a husband. Like I've earned the right to live life the way I want to live it, the way it aligns with my values, with what's important to me, with what brings me joy. And ultimately, like, what brings me some fun and some sense of play and some irreverence. We take life so seriously. And again, there are serious things in life. There are serious things going on. I am in no way ever diminishing that there are serious points and pieces in our lives and our society and everything that's going on. And in that, where are some glimmers of some fun, some hope, some joy, some connection, right? I think I've learned the importance, the just absolute utter importance of community, being in community, being connected. I think we're so disconnected now. You mentioned social media, and I was like, that is a huge part of it. But then at some point, when do we say, I'm choosing to unplug from this? I'm choosing to connect with, Catherine because I want to. And even if it's virtually connecting, right? Because we're not in the same physical geographical location, but at least I can see you. So it was funny. It's like you'll see people and we'll be on Teams meetings and people still don't even have their cameras on. Like you really can't connect in that way. Yeah. So I think I've learned like the importance of community, and that extends beyond, our family. The other thing, can I keep going? The other thing I am realizing, and it's like be reaffirmed, like all of these different roles that we have. I was listening to this, I think I mentioned this doctor I was listening to and on YouTube, and she was talking about like all these different roles, right? I used to think, and I know I thought this, like you're talking about in your 30s, like, the role of a mom. So if you're not a mom, then, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with you, right? And that could be somebody by choice didn't have children, or they couldn't, right? I mean, or you have the role of a wife, or partner, right? Oh my gosh. So if you're not in partnership or that role, then something's wrong with you. And then we have our roles in our careers, right? And it's like, I was listening to her. She's like, but there's all these other like plethora of things that you, you like your hobbies and your, your community and, your social, like, your, let's say you want to volunteer. Like there's so much, more, it's like a kaleidoscope. There's so many more pieces of life. And, again, it's like, our society, like what we're told, like, here are the 3 things you can do. And it goes back to our corporate conversation. And that's what I've seen. It's like we play out those roles, right? And it's like, no, you can be those roles or you can be none of those roles. And you can still have a very fulfilling and fulfilled and phenomenal life. And so I think it's about really like, again, like questioning in a loving way, not in a judgmental way. Like if you didn't want to get married or you chose not to get married, or you get married later in life, whatever that means, like there's some magical age that you should get married, or you want to have children or you don't want to have children, right? That whatever that is, like if you come to peace with that, like if you're at peace with like it's okay. Like you don't have to be this other role that somebody tells you have to be, because the shit is all made up.
Mm-hmm. This shit is all made up. Nah.
Nah, right.
Oh my God. So good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Nah. That's what I keep coming back to from this episode. Nah. The unsolicited feedback, the years of pleasing our parents and our teachers and our bosses and the systems that were never designed with us in mind. That deliberate decision to tear it apart, to put it down, to just say, nah. Okay, if that landed for you or something else landed for you in this episode, will you please, as always, share this episode with a woman who needs to hear it? Like put it in your group chat. Who are you having these conversations with in real life? Send them the podcast episode, because that's how our collective conversation continues to grow. Another way to support the podcast is to rate and review the show wherever you're listening. It genuinely helps more women to find their way here with us. And if you have wisdom or a question to add to this conversation, contribute your voice to the 40 Portal at the40portal.com/contribute. Okay, see you right back here next time.